I wound up in the hospital, y'all. And honestly, it really is a story because the conversation that I wanted to bring up is looking at our bodies and our minds, everything holistically, and the modalities that we are implementing in order to maintain a beautiful equilibrium. So I wasn't feeling very well during the week, just not necessarily feeling like myself. I just felt the blood rushing in my head. I was experiencing dizziness, similar to vertigo. And then once I began to feel like nausea and the headache was lasting throughout the entire day, I was like, no, let me check my blood pressure. So I checked my blood pressure and it was pretty high, like higher than my normal baseline. And I know my baseline because I go to my PCP. High blood pressure has been an issue for my parents and even my sibling. Like they also had some concerns with their blood pressure. So I've always not necessarily monitored it, but I've always been very keen and aware of how I treat my body, what I consume to make sure that this is not something that I will have to deal with. But apart from diet, apart from exercise, the biggest thing is like peace, right? Calm. And so I have not been stressed lately. And I had maybe some conversations that might spark some anxiety, but nothing really that shakes me. So when I woke up with this headache and I just was not feeling well throughout the day, I knew that something was off and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't my blood pressure. However, when I checked my blood pressure, baby, that thing was too high. And I was concerned, but not so concerned that I was still going to go to the hospital. But I did tell my siblings, one is a nurse, the other has issues with blood pressure. And so they were both like, you need to go to the ER. And I still didn't want to do it. So I just went to my holistic store, got the herbs that I needed, took some herbs, and then I went to sleep. I woke up the next day. I still had a headache. I still wasn't necessarily feeling well. Some backstory: Florida is hot AF right now. Okay, like really hot to the point where there's drought, to the point where people's ACs are conking out, mine included. It works here and there. Some hours it's just not doing anything, and then other hours it cools the house. So it's just fluctuating. We're experiencing some high heats across the board. It's not even just Florida, but as we know, Florida is typically a hot state, but the humidity has just been stifling. So I was like, maybe the heat is really causing this. And my sister was telling me that, headaches can spike the blood pressure, but adversely or conversely, blood pressure can also cause headaches. So I just knew that I had a headache and I also knew that my blood pressure had spiked. The reason that my siblings were really concerned was because they were just afraid that, those are like approaching stroke level numbers, which heat stroke, that's something that's very real. And when I checked my blood pressure again later on in the day, it was back to normal. So that did make me feel better, but the dizziness and headaches continued. So I was like, let me just go to the ER because I had an event that I was going to be working and I didn't want to be feeling unwell for that. And I definitely wanted to make it to that event, which you're going to see because it was so beautiful. So glad that I was able to go. And it was around like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. My event was going to be later in the day. So I was like, I can go to the ER, figure out whatever's going on, get that situated, and be able to make it to the event. I get to the ER. The intake nurse at triage is like, asking what the symptoms are. And you're asked several times when you go to the ER what your symptoms are and what brought you in. So I explained to the nurse what happened. And the interesting thing really struck me was when I gave her the numbers, which is really high, she was like, oh, that's the norm now. And I was like, really? Like 139 over 129 is normal? And she didn't even respond to me because she was so engulfed in doing this paperwork and all the things. And it just made me think. What struck me was this healthcare system, this healthcare system. The fact that high numbers like this are considered the norm is outrageous. Could she have further explained to me what she meant by that? Like maybe it's because of the heat, but she didn't. And for me, I'm like, is this what we're doing where we are normalizing anxiety level numbers to just accept something that is abnormal as the norm? I couldn't do it. I can't do it. And so when she said that to me, I'm texting my siblings at the same time and I'm just like, that's so weird because, and I didn't accept it. I didn't accept when she said that to me because that's not the norm for me. And I'm not going to accept that because I refuse to have hypertension. I refuse to live in a state of like just anxiety, for lack of a better word. And I don't know what triggered it apart from to say that it was heat exhaustion because, like I said, my AC conked out. It's super hot in Florida and I was dehydrated. You know, after spending 4 hours in the ER, I was cracking jokes with the nurses, kikiing. They were calling me Erica Badu by the end of my time at the ER. One thing I will say, okay, IV fluids are the, and apparently according to my sister, she's like hospital IV is even better than like the mobile IV services. But anyway, I felt a lot better once that was pumping through my veins. So I just think I was dehydrated and just suffering from heat exhaustion. They never told me what the issue was because they don't know. They're just there to treat symptoms. And that is what Western medicine is for. It is to treat symptoms. It is not to actually treat and cure illnesses. Because when we think about the amount of decades that so many organizations have poured time, energy, and money into researching, and for us to still not have a cure for the majority of the ailments that are plaguing the states, this is strange because how are people overseas able to maintain such wonderful health numbers? How are people overseas able to cure some diagnoses? Because they're not here to cure illness. They are here to simply assist with symptoms. And unfortunately, that is the norm in this country. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is just how the body is approached. The reason that I have a holistic perspective and view is because we are holistic beings and we have to be treated holistically. Focusing on one body system does a disservice because the body works together. It is a system. There's something within the system that needed to be addressed. I definitely needed hydration. I need to figure out how to maintain moisture and hydration in my body. That's a healthy balance because the qi in traditional Chinese medicine, we learn so many of these different terms and things that assist us in bringing the body into balance. I was laughing and had a good time with the nurses that were helping me. But even then, they called me Erica Badu because when I was talking about holistic medicine, it was considered medieval, which is insane to me because I left the hospital with no answers. And that's not the first time that I've left the hospital with no answers. However, when I have seen holistic practitioners, I have answers and I have solutions. So I'm always going to be that girl. If you want to call me Erica Badu, which I'm really not offended by, girl, but if you want to make fun of the practices that I employ to make sure that I'm stable, have at it. It really has no bearings on whether I'm going to continue to live the way that I should in order for me to maintain a healthy, holistic homeostasis.